Alright guys, so it's finally time to get into the long-awaited, much anticipated two-way budget bait finesse death match between the reigning champion, the Fishband GH100, and the new latest upstart, the Surnoya Spirit Fox. Now, I've been wanting to do this for a while, but it's just been way too hot outside. You know, where I live, temperatures are hitting, close to 100 degrees. But this weekend, it looks like it's going to be only, the low 90s. So maybe I can get out and do a field battle. And I also wanted to do a side-to-side fishing comparison between these two, because from my memory, there are some distinct differences between them. Now, before we do that, I wanted to do something that's never been done before on my channel before a cast battle. And that is, I'm going to clean out the bearings for these reels before we do the battle. And the reason I'm doing that is because I distinctly remember that the GH100 had a lot of grease on its bearings, so maybe we can see if I can remember how to take this off. I know there was a lot of grease on the spool bearing, if I recall. And I believe I heard some kind of a noise on the bearing of the GH100. So I'm going to remove these bearings from both reels. And I bought two separate containers. These are salt and pepper shakers. I'm going to stick the Spirit Fox's bearings in the salt container, and then the GH100 in the pepper container. I'm going to soak them overnight, let them dry, and then maybe put a drop or two of my Hedgehog ultralight bearing oil on the bearings before I take them out. So let's get to that. Okay, so I just removed the bearings on the GH100, and here's the spool bearing. And it had some grease on it. I'm sure I rubbed it off with my fingers, but let's see how it spins. Probably like a second. It's not super bad, but it can definitely be better. And this is the side plate bearing. So a little bit over 1 second spin time. Alright, so I'm going to drop these bearings in the pepper shaker, and we're going to add acetone. Alright, so not too much, but there we go. Now we're going to cover this up. In fact, I'm going to put a layer of toilet paper because this acetone smells really, really bad. Alright, so we're going to let this soak overnight. Now it's time for the Spirit Fox. Okay, so here's the spool bearing for the Spirit Fox. And it actually doesn't look that bad. It doesn't look like there's any grease on it. Let's see how it spins. So a little bit over a second and a half, I'd say. But I swear I heard something kind of like the bearing making noise when I did the free spool test when I first unboxed it. Here's the side plate bearing. Side plate bearing is a little loud, but it spins pretty good, and I can hear I can feel a little bit of ticking when spinning the side plate bearing, so that might be the culprit. Hopefully the acetone will wash whatever that is out. Alright, so we're going to stick the Spirit Fox bearings into the salt shaker. We're going to pour a little bit of acetone. Okay, not too much. And then we're going to cover with toilet paper. Okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow. So I went ahead and I took the bearings out of the acetone, and I've been letting them air dry for a couple of hours now. But while the reels are partially disassembled, I figured this would be a perfect time to go over 2 reasons why I have no clue which one of these reels is going to win the cast battle. Now, just in case you were wondering, we're going to be throwing the true 1/8 ounce minnow and also the true 1/16 ounce little crankbait in the cast battle. Now, the first reason is going to be the spools. Now, here's the Spirit Fox spool right here. It's got the long spool shaft. It's very heavily ported. It's got the metal piece here to act with the magnets. And then you got your GH100 spool that's got the short spool shaft, and it's got a non-ported area for the magnets, but it's also heavily ported as well, as you can see on the inside as well. So the GH100 has an extremely lightweight spool, especially for a sub $60 reel from China. It's weighing in at about 8.4 grams. But the Spirit Fox spool blows it away at 7.8 grams. And that's just amazing for a sub $60 reel from China. So I am not sure how they made this thing weigh that much less than the GH100 spool, considering the long spool shaft. Now, I will say that the Spirit Fox has a slightly wider spool. It's really hard to tell, but it is fractionally wider, probably less than a millimeter. But yeah, this is a significantly lighter spool. They're both about the same depth, very, very shallow. But I will say that the GH100, the area where you lay the line is a little bit narrower than the Spirit Fox. So it's going to hold a little bit less line, and that may help to negate a little bit of that massive weight disadvantage. So the Spirit Fox goes into the battle with the advantage of having a much lighter spool. So it's time to go over the second reason why I think this distance shootout is going to be up for grabs, and that's the brake system. And the GH100 comes firing back with a far superior brake system, in my opinion. Now, the Spirit Fox uses the generic Korean mag-track system, and in fact 90% of the world's magnetic brake reels have some form of this system or the other. Now, luckily for the Spirit Fox, these brakes are really, really strong. If you saw the on the water casting video that I did on it. But unfortunately for the Spirit Fox, Fishband decided to copy almost to the T, in my opinion, the world's best pure magnetic brake system, and that's Shimano's FTB system. And they even put an FTB logo on the spool. I found that hilarious. Hopefully that'll show up. But yeah, they made no secret as to which brake system they were copying, and what makes this brake system so good is that it's a dynamic system that doesn't need any kind of extra brake mechanism on the spool to weigh the spool down. And what I mean by dynamic is that the magnets actually move closer and farther away from the spool during the cast. So you got your 2 bank of magnets on each side, but one side of each bank is spring loaded. So during the fastest part of the cast, this side of the magnets will move closer to the spool when it's needed the most, and so will this side. But they'll retract back down during the second half of the cast when you don't need so much braking. So in theory, you should be able to cast longer. Now I have taken all three of Shimano's FTB braked reels up against reels with lighter spools, and they have won. So it's going to be very interesting there. So you got your lighter spool versus your better brakes. So there's only one way to find out which one's going to prevail. And before I assemble these reels again, let's talk about these bearings. Now, before I put them in acetone, they barely spun maybe like a second. And here's the main spool bearing for the Spirit Fox. And let's see how it spins now. So that's about 4 seconds. So that's a major improvement. Now the GH100 really improved. Here's the main spool bearing. It spun, I think, maybe like a second. But let's check out this spin time now. If this damn camera will focus. Alright, there we go. Now I got almost 12 seconds one time, but so yeah, almost a 10-second spool time for the GH100, and the small bearings actually improved as well. So that's pretty impressive, and of course I doubt these are very high spec bearings for being budget reels, but I'm not sure if I want to even put a drop of oil in them or not. I'm gonna make a decision once I get out on the water whether I'm gonna do that or not. Now if they're too loud or too rough during the cast, then I will put a drop, but I'm gonna try to run them dry first. Alright, so I'm gonna reassemble these reels, put some line on them, and I'll see you guys out on the water and on the casting field. Okay, so before we get to these really interesting results, I just wanted to say one thing, well actually two things. Now the first thing was that I was going to show you guys footage of these reels out on the water casting various different ultralight lures, but that footage was crap in my opinion, so I'm deciding to leave that out. But I can tell you this, based on throwing the exact same lures on the reels, on the exact same rods, using the exact same line, it looked like the Spirit Fox was casting farther to me. And the second thing is that I decided to go ahead and put 2 drops of the alchemy oil on each bearing because the reels were really loud and it took away some of the smoothness. And interestingly enough, the GH100 returned to its normal, smooth, whisper quiet self. But the bearings on the Spirit Fox, for some reason, did not take to the alchemy oil that well, so it got a little bit quieter, but it's still quite noisy, which is a departure from this super smooth, super quiet casting when I got it out of the box. But it didn't affect the casting, that's for sure. Alright, so let's get down to business. We're going to start off with the true 1/8 ounce little minnow. And coming in second place is going to be the Spirit Fox with an average of 84.23 feet. So that's pretty respectable in my opinion. But it wasn't enough to beat the mighty GH100, which averaged 87.73 feet. So that's almost a 30-yard average. And I'm going to put up a graphic now of all the bait finesse reels that I put through this contest using the same rod and same line. And as you can see, the GH100 beat everyone except for the high dollar REVO and ALDEBARAN, but it did beat out the high dollar SS Air, and it also beat out the Alphas Air and Scorpion BFS. Now these are reels that cost 5 to 7 times more than this GH100, and the Spirit Fox beat all of them except for the GH100 and the REVO and ALDEBARAN. So this Spirit Fox beat out the Scorpion BFS, the SS Air, and the Alphas Air. Now of course keep in mind, I did not clean the bearings out on those other reels, so of course those reels would probably cast farther. But I'm not sure if that Alphas Air or SS Air would beat these 2 reels in that contest because of the air brake, even if I cleaned the bearings out. Alright, so let's get to the more important test in my opinion, and that is going to be the true 1/16 ounce little crankbait. And the second place goes to the mighty GH100 with an average of 61.9 feet. So that means the winner was the even mightier Spirit Fox. And this averaged a pretty damn amazing 65.81 feet. And I can tell you this much, as soon as I casted the Spirit Fox, now I casted this after the GH100, I could tell this thing was going to win this 1/16 ounce battle, because with the GH100, the lure went off to the left a little bit, letting me know that the spool was a little too heavy, coupled with the fact that the rod didn't really load up that lure very well. But with the Spirit Fox, the casting was a lot easier, it was a lot more accurate, it would go straight instead of off to the left, and it was a lot more comfortable casting that lure with the Spirit Fox. So in this situation, the lighter spool beat out the better brakes. Now, I'm going to put up a graphic of those other reels and where these 2 reels stand as far as the 1/16 ounce lure, and it looks like the $300 JDM bait casters with their super lightweight spools easily beat out both these 2 reels, but the Spirit Fox beat out the Scorpion BFS and the Alpha's Air, while the GH100 only beat out the Alpha's Air. Now I will tell you this much, that the brakes are stronger on the GH100. Whenever I blew the spools up on both, the blow up was much worse on the Spirit Fox than the GH100. Alright, so in casting, we are split at one win apiece. So which one of these reels is better, or which one is the winner? Now of course, that's going to be your personal decision, but to me, if I had only one reel to pick to actually go fishing with all day long, I would pick the GH100. Now let's go over the strengths of the Spirit Fox first, what I think is better on the Spirit Fox versus the GH100. Now it is a little bit smaller, and it palms a little bit better, and it does have this really nice micro click spool tension adjustment, and the Dragstar clicks are a lot more positive and refined. And the knobs, I wouldn't say I like them better than the GH100, but they are nice. But other than that, everything else, in my opinion, goes to the GH100 when it comes to just fishability. The brakes are better. It feels more solid, more refined. It's smoother, that's for sure. The thumb bar is solid. There is no wiggle, there's no movement. The brake adjustment is very precise and refined for the most part. And it's got a longer handle. Now the best way to put it is, going from one reel to the other, is that the Spirit Fox feels like a $60 baitcaster. The thumb bar feels fragile, it's already starting to move. The brake adjustment is not as refined, and it kind of moves and wiggles. And it just doesn't feel as smooth and solid on the retrieve. Not saying it's a bad reel, it's actually a hell of a reel for the money. As you can see, it can handle those really ultralight lures better than the GH100. But the GH100 just feels more solid. It feels closer to a mainstream reel, meaning a reel that's coming from a mainstream manufacturer. So yeah, I'll take a little bit of loss of cast distance for the refinement of this thumb bar, the refinement of the brake dial, and it feels a lot more solid in my hand, especially turning the handle. So of course it's going to be up to you which one you prefer. Now I will say this, that the Spirit Fox has come out with another color, purple, so it does come in 3 colors now, if that's going to affect your decision. But the GH100 has been offered at some stores for $10 more. I believe they give you ceramic spool bearings, and they give you an option of knobs. You get the option of slim metal knobs, these EVA knobs, which are surprisingly comfortable for such a cheap reel, and then also I think some cork knobs for like $10 more. So yeah, there you go. Now if you're looking for just pure casting performance, if you're looking to cast super lightweight lures under, let's say 2.5 grams, then the Spirit Fox is where it's at. But if you're, just casting things like 1/8 of an ounce, then the GH100 is where it's at. All right, guys, I hope this helped you guys out in making a decision. But don't go and buying anything just yet, because I have yet another bait finesse reel coming in from China. Hopefully it'll be here next week, and I will share that with you guys. Okay, guys, thanks a lot.